What's up, guys? Today we're going to be checking out the Hisense MiniLED U6. All right, so I've already taken the TV out of the box. This time we are going to be installing it inside my dedicated home theater space. You can see that I've got a 150-inch screen behind me, and this TV is the 65-inch version. This TV does come in at 55, 65, 75, 85, and also 100 inches. So if you find this one is too small for you, you can go with the 100-inch big boy. But as far as specs-wise, this is a mini LED TV. It does use quantum dots, so it does have 600 different zones, so you should get some pretty good brightness, also blooming control as well, since this is mini LED tech. This does support HDR, HDR10+, Dolby Vision IQ, and as well as Dolby ATMOS virtual processing. So how this is done is that the TV does have speakers located on the bottom, and then as we can see on the back, this does have a built-in subwoofer built into the back as well. Quote-unquote subwoofer. It's pretty small, but we should get some decent bass out of this. All right, on the side of the TV, as far as ins and outs, we get one USB in, 4 HDMI inputs, 2 are HDMI 2.0, and 2 are HDMI 2.1, with support for VRR. So if you are a gamer, this TV will support up to 144 Hertz. There is an antenna input if you want to run an antenna to this to get terrestrial TV. There's a 3.5mm AV input and also a 3.5mm headphone jack. So if you want to plug up to a pair of headphones, you can do that as well. And then also on the back, we'd have a LAN connection, optical, and also a USB input. And if you're going to mount this on your wall, this does have VESA 400 mounting points on the back of the TV as well. Now the TV does come with a little tiny remote control. This is a Fire TV remote control. This is going to be the Fire TV variant. Now the idea behind putting the TV and reviewing it in here is that we are going to set this up in a home theater environment. So I'm going to be pairing this up with Hisense's Saturn home theater Dolby ATMOS DTS-X surround sound setup. This is a 4.1.2 channel setup, and this should pair perfectly with the television set. And of course, shout out to Hisense for setting this entire setup for me to review. Right on the top here, we get your instruction manual and all that good stuff there. We get the remote control. So this is the little hub. This looks like a mini, almost like an Apple TV. Let's take a little look at the little connections on here. We get the USB input, which is used for service. We have one optical input, one HDMI output, which supports 4K 60, one HDMI input, and then for the power is a USB-C inlet. Here is the power button. Okay, after we remove the top here, you can see we've got 4 speakers. So these actually come very nicely wrapped. So here on the bottom is your power inlet, which is located right in the bottom. It's notched out, so if it's sitting down, the power cord can stick outwards. There's a button here for pairing. We have a little threaded insert, so if you want to put this, get a wall mount or a stand that accommodates that, that's where you would screw it into the back of the speaker. There is going to be a mid-bass driver here. There's going to be a tweeter here, and then there's going to be a full range driver on the top here. So the driver up top will be up firing to support Atmos height effects, DTS-X height effects, and all that good stuff. And then of course you have the 2 front-facing drivers there. And if you look on the very bottom here, these are going to be labeled. So this actually says it's for surround left. So make sure you put this in the right spot and just pay attention to what's located on the bottom of each speaker. Oh, and there's also a threaded insert on the bottom as well. Power cord with the USB end. This is for the hub. 1 HDMI cable, 1 optical cable, 4. You get 4 of these power cords for each of the speakers. And here we have the subwoofer. Now this is a very small subwoofer, and as you can see, I'm holding it fairly easily. On the bottom is a 6.5-inch driver, and around back, this is a ported subwoofer. The power inlet is located back here as well as the pairing button. Right, so now let's go ahead and place the front, left, and right speakers. Remember that on the bottom of each speaker, it will say front left, front right. So these speakers have to go in that specific orientation. Otherwise, your sound is going to be off. So make sure you pay attention. So I'm going to be placing these left and right speakers on each side of the TV. One is going to come here. I've got these on stands. And then I'm going to place the other one on the opposite side on its own stand right here. Now, as far as the surround speakers, I've got these right back here. I'm going to place these back here in the second row. Remember, keep the correct speaker in its correct orientation. So I'm going to place one here. Then I'm going to place the other one on the opposite side. And this hopefully should give us some really good surround sound effect in the back and also overhead. So now let's go place the subwoofer. I'm going to be placing this guy right in the front right corner. This should give me some pretty good low frequency bass extension in this corner. That's where usually subwoofers sound its best if I'm only using one. Of course, play with the placement in your room because it might sound different in a different spot in your house. And remember, this is only a 6.5-inch subwoofer, so it might not dig the lowest and might not play the loudest, but we're gonna find out. And here we are at the Fire TV homepage. We can see as we scroll down, we will get some recommended curated apps that Amazon is going to think you might be interested in watching and checking out. We have live TV settings, we have a find setting or search setting, your favorite stuff, and then we can change to different inputs from this section here, or of course you can just use the remote to select your inputs as well. This is a list of apps that I have downloaded on the TV. We can go into this section here, and if you want to go under the app library, this is where you're going to find the App Store on the Fire TV. If you want to search for something, go to search, and then you can search here and then type in whatever it is you're looking for. But let's go ahead and quickly just check out some of the relevant settings I think that you might be interested on this television set. So under the settings area, we have, again, your different inputs. We got your network, all of your kind of preferences for the TV itself, such as Alexa, you get your timer, etc., etc. But let's go ahead back on out of this, and then let's go into the picture and sound settings. Under the picture settings, we got a few different options to choose from. Here are the few different picture modes. We've got vivid, standard, movie, sport, game, and then filmmaker mode. Of course, this is a smart TV, so you do get all of your most popular apps, such as Netflix, Prime Video, of course. And if you are within one of these apps, such as YouTube, we can see that this does support HDR, 4K, and it does look great on this television set. I do have the local dimming set on high, and this does look amazing looking, especially for this price point. Now, if we back out of this, jump over to Netflix, you can see here that this does support Dolby Vision and Dolby ATMOS. As for Dolby Vision, comparing the four main flavors, I did prefer Dolby Vision Dark for the most accurate looking picture. It's a little dimmer than the other presets, but it keeps the highlights from being too hot while the darker areas still have solid detail. If you're watching something a bit dimmer, then you might prefer Dolby Vision Vivid, but as is, I think it's overly saturated compared to the other three options. If you're watching standard HDR10, Filmmaker mode is going to shut off all the image processing and present the image the way you should be watching it. But for a movie that leans on the dimmer side like F1, you might like the Vivid mode. It's going to juice up the brightness and saturation and give you a ton more vibrancy. You can, of course, adjust the picture settings to however you like it, but out of the box, this is how each preset treats standard HDR10 material. Under Light Sense, you can turn this on or off. This will dim or brighten the image using the TV sensor, depending on how bright or dark your ambient light is in your room. If you want to get the brightest image without anything being manipulated, you're going to want to keep this off. We can adjust the backlight control from 0 to 100%. And then here we've got local dimming. You can see if we turn the local dimming off, the entire picture gets really dim. The black levels, especially the black bars, they do tend to look more gray rather than black. As we go up, we can choose low. Everything does become a lot brighter looking. The blacks become more solid. And then just the image overall has more control over the highlights and shadow detail. And then of course, as we go up, medium and then high having the most brightness output, the best black levels, and the most control in the shadows and the specular highlights as well. So if you want to get the best image quality for this TV, I think high is going to be your best bet. As far as blooming on the TV, here you can see that I have the local dimming turned off. I'm also slightly overexposing in this image so you can see how much we get blooming around the text on screen and also around the round balls. So the blacks definitely look gray, and you can see how light that the blacks look around each of the bright objects. Now turning the local dimming on, either low, medium, or high, high being the best, you can see that the blacks are almost perfectly black. Not quite OLED black because there is a very slight halo around all of the white text and objects on screen, but this still, for this TV at this price point, this looks really impressive. And even the subtitles look great. You can see a very faint glow around the words on screen in the letterbox bars, but this is nothing that's going to make you ever want to complain about the image quality on this TV. And I'm even overexposing this image to make it look like it's blooming, which it's doing very little of. Under peak brightness, if you want to get the most pop out of your image to make HDR really shine, you're going to want to keep this on high. Otherwise, you can see how keeping this off, the image is really dim. And of course, as we go up low, medium, and then to high, the image does get brighter overall. Under advanced settings, here we've got filmmaker mode. You can turn this on automatic on or off. Under brightness, we have some sliders for contrast, brightness, gamma, dynamic contrast, which we have high, medium, low, and then off. If you feel whatever you're watching is lacking with contrast, black levels suck, or the brightness sucks, then using the dynamic contrast might be something you might want to check out. If you want to keep it as pure as possible, then turning this off is going to be the way to go. Under color, we have sliders for saturation, tint, color space. Now for movies like this that are kind of dim and kind of dull looking, I find that the dynamic color can add a touch of warmth to the image overall. While keeping it off, you can see just how dull the image is. It's not a huge bump in warmthness, but it does add a little bit of flair to the overall image. White balance, we have 2 points calibration and then 11 points calibration. So if you have the appropriate tools, you can calibrate this to get the best image possible. And the same thing under the color grading options, if you have the appropriate calibration tools, you can get this as close to perfect as you possibly can. Under motion, we have a few different options for image processing. We've got off, custom, film, clear, standard, and then smooth. If we go under custom, we can adjust the judder reduction and the blur reduction. So if you want to get that smooth soap opera-esque effect, you can go ahead and choose this under the motion processing settings. I'm not a big fan of it, so I'm going to keep that off. And then under clarity, you can adjust the sharpness, super resolution by turning this on or off to give it some enhanced sharpness, edge enhancer. We've got low, medium, and the high, MPEG noise reduction, and then banding reduction. So if you notice any kind of banding or gradation, this might help minimize that with some lower quality sources. And if you want to apply all these settings that you just made, you can apply that to all of your available inputs. And then under input settings, if you are a gamer, you can see you can turn on or off AMD FreeSync, or you can turn on or off ALLM. Under sound settings, we have a few different presets. We've got standard, movie, music, sports, and then custom. This does support Dolby speaker virtualization. You can choose between keeping this off, surround virtualizer, and then Dolby ATMOS.
Since the start. HSGP has really struggled with this car, but they brought an upgrade package this weekend. Let's see if it makes a difference as Hisense has Perez in the Red Bull.
Cars bounce around this dirty air, can't position to attack.
He's complaining about his car over the radio. That's not what the team wants to hear.
Copy gap is 0.9 to DRS. You're within DRS range.
Now, it's going to be really hard to tell over a YouTube video, but as far as TV speakers go, this TV actually sounded much better than I had anticipated. Now, I am coming from a really big 98-inch TV in my living room. Also, I've got a 55-inch TV OLED in my office, two of which have really good audio systems. I would say the OLED has a really good audio system because the speakers come directly out of the screen. Moving over to this guy here, the speakers are located on the bottom edge of the screen, while there is that little mini subwoofer on the back. With these budget type of TV sets, you only get the speakers that are either on the bottom edge of the screen, you might get them on the back of the TV, and they often do sound really tinny, really thin, just straight up treble. This TV, I kind of thought it would sound like that, maybe with a little bit of bass, but that little subwoofer on the back of this TV actually gives this set a really Nice, really big, full sound, way better than I was anticipating. Now, if you are watching an action movie, you can overdrive the TV and make that subwoofer bottom out. So be careful of what you're watching and be careful of how loud you have your TV turned up. You're not going to hear anything flying over your head, anything behind you, nothing like that. So despite it saying Dolby Atmos, you will not get anything flying above you. Now, if you do want to get that overhead surround sensation, hooking up the Hisense Saturn home theater system up to the television set is super easy and will give you that true surround sound experience. All you've got to do is take the included HDMI cable, plug it into the HDMI EARC on the back of the TV, go directly into the black control box into the Saturn system, and then boom, there you go. Once you turn it on, you're going to hear a couple of beeps going throughout all 4 of the speakers. That's going to tell you what speaker is in what location. And then once everything is connected, the beeps are going to stop. You'll see a couple flashing lights on the control unit itself, and you're good to go. It's as simple as that. It's a no-brainer. So on the remote, you do get the power button, which is in the upper left corner. This is the selection button, the effects button, Bluetooth button. This is your volume up and down and your navigation key. You got a play, pause button in the center. Here's your EQ button, your menu settings, your level settings, and then your mute button. So if you want to, let's go ahead and hit the effects button here, which has the little musical note. So by tapping that, this is going to be the effect section or the effects settings. You can turn surround on or off. You can choose pure mode, pro mode, and then back to off. Next section is night mode on off, voice on off, and then AI on off. And then here is virtual X. You can turn that on or off for 2-channel or 5, 7-channel sources if you want to upmix, and then back to surround. Then here we have the Bluetooth menu there. Then under EQ, we have a movie preset, we have music, game, sports, standard, and then back to movie. So I like movie just because it's a little bit heavier sounding and does put more emphasis on bass. Now pressing the menu button here, we have the others section, which will give you DCL control. I'm not exactly sure what DCL is, and I checked the manual. It doesn't really give you any information on DCL. There is DRC, which I'm guessing is probably dynamic range control, search speaker or speaker search on or off, the version number of the remote control and of the speakers themselves, firmware upgrade, which there is none at the time of this video, demo mode on or off, and then restore everything back to its initial settings. There's speaker inspector, which will play a little beeping test tone through all the speakers, neural X on or off, and then you can reset the remote control. Then under the level settings, here we've got the height channel, which I have at a +3, so it maxes out at a +3, or you can go all the way down to a -3. Subwoofer level goes up to +3, and then of course down to a -3. Then SLR, which is your surround left and right, you can go here all the way up to a +5, or you can go down to a -5. And then you can reset all of your settings. Here we have the dimmer control, bass, treble, dialogue, and then back to height. So all of your settings can be accessed with the remote control. I am unable to find any settings that show up on the TV, so luckily this remote control does have that little LED display.
Left front, right front, center, left side surround, right side surround, left rear, right rear, left front height, right front height, left rear height, right rear height.
Keep in mind that this is a 4.1.2 channel setup. So you get the 4 speakers, the 1 subwoofer, and then 2 up-firing speakers, which are located on the back speakers. As far as center channel intelligibility, you will have to rely on the phantom imaging of the left and right speakers to make it sound like the center or the dialogue is coming directly at the TV set. So in order to get the best possible experience for getting that center channel intelligibility, you will have to be sitting in the center seat or the money seat. If you're sitting off to a left and right wing seat, then the soundstage may collapse if you are sitting somewhat close to the speakers, so keep that in mind. Now, as far as the surround sound effect, as far as, things flying overhead, with that leaf section on the Dolby Demo, I know in my personal home theater, I can hear the leaf kind of float from the top speakers and kind of float from the counterclockwise or clockwise around the top speakers till it kind of loops around and comes back down into the lower half. And I'm not going to say that it was perfect in recreating that top channel sensation. However, there are moments where you do kind of get the feeling that something is floating above your head. It isn't rock solid, but you do get a little taste of it. So it's not perfect, but you do get a little sensation. And as far as detail within the speakers, within the soundstage, it does have a somewhat brightish sound to it. I mean, these are really small speakers. The mid-bass drivers aren't going to be real deep or hard hitting. So it will lean more on the brighter side of neutral, so to speak. So not super edgy bright, but this does lean more heavily on the treble side. Luckily, you do get that 6.5-inch subwoofer, which surprisingly sounds pretty good. It's big, it's boomy, and it does fill my entire home theater space. Again, I did say it's big and it's boomy. It's not super textured and refined. You don't get that really heavy chest slam. However, just watching action movies, Netflix, Amazon Prime, you will get a very large room-filling sensation, large booming bass. So if you're looking for a big boom, this little subwoofer can definitely do it for you. It actually kind of sounds more like it's an 8-inch or maybe even a 10-inch subwoofer. Now you can drive this thing a little hard and make some funky sounds if you're pushing it too loud. So keep that in mind. So maybe on those movies where it's got a lot of bass, maybe don't turn up the bass level all the way up to its maximum setting. I did get a really good surround sound sensation, whether it was DTS-X or Dolby Atmos, or if I was using Neural X to watch something that wasn't in Atmos or DTS-X, then that did a pretty good job as well as filling in what was happening up top. But again, just stuff flying back and forth overhead. Sometimes it sounded really good. Sometimes it kind of missed the mark. So not perfect, but it is much better than what you're getting directly from the TV, which, by the way, the TV does sound pretty good on its own. Now, at the time of this video, the Hisense U6 is selling for $699, and the Hisense Saturn home theater is selling for $999. I wanted to get a home theater setup in for a review that wasn't going to break the bank, and what I think most folks in the world could reasonably afford. I honestly didn't think the TV was going to perform half as good as it did, but I was totally blown away by the image performance. The black levels are just as good as my other mini LED TVs in the house, which do cost several $1,000s more, and the TV gets plenty bright to make HDR pop. It is spec'd at 1000 nits, so it's not the brightest TV on the block, but considering the cost, it does throw an amazing image. And of course, if you want the full enchilada, you gotta pair it up with the Hisense Saturn home theater. It's super simple to set up and it sounds as good as the TV looks. You'd really be shortchanging yourself if you didn't pair up the TV with some sort of audio system. So for under $2,000, you are getting an awesome home theater setup that won't cost a ton of spare change. So what are your thoughts on the Hisense U6 and the Hisense Saturn home theater setup? Leave your thoughts down below and let me know. Now, if you do want to pick up one of these, I will leave some links for it down below in this video's description. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next video.